And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. We are live. Welcome to Benchley Night on this fine March evening, where in Vermont, anyway, it is fulfilling what March is supposed to be, which is unpredictable. All this last week, it was like 50 degrees. Then today it was like 30 degrees or 35 or 40 degrees. And then tomorrow it's supposed to snow. So it's going to do what it wants to do. So we have the wood stove going. I only have one cat. Charbonneau has not yet come home, which I do not approve of. I do not approve of that one bit. But hopefully he will. He's very fond of the neighbors across the street, all of them. And he visits them and rides around on the shoulders of Katie Bray. Betty Sue and I are horrified at how faithless Charbonneau is, riding around on Katie Bray's shoulders, eating her snacks inside her house. We want Charbonneau at our house. Anyway, Betty Sue, I believe, is in Houston tonight on a little McMurtry tour, and then she gets home for about a week in Texas, and then she hits the road for a long time. So I don't really, we have to figure out when we're going to get to see each other again. Hi, Carol Burning, nice that you're here. Welcome, everybody. I see that 7 people are watching. And as you know, we now read all the people who are financially supporting our Substack, because our Substack, all funds raised from that go to various charities. I'm fortunate enough that I have that amount of padding in my life, and there are certainly, during these very sad times, there are plenty of charities that can use the finances. So anyway, that's enough blathering. Why don't we just get going with tonight's reading? Now, this reading, ladies and gentlemen, is from Robert Benchley, from the book that my father used to read to us, which is The Inside Benchley, and it's one of his best. And this story, I share a love of it with Dave Alvin. I remember on the very first Benchley night that we did on one of the Roots on the Rails trips, this is the piece that Dave read. The tooth, the whole tooth, and nothing but the tooth. Some well-known saying, it really doesn't matter much which, is proved by the fact that everyone likes to talk about his experience at the dentist's. For years and years, little articles like this have been written on the subject. Little jokes like some that I shall presently make have been made, and people in general have been telling other people just what emotions they experience when they crawl onto the old red plush guillotine. They like to explain to each other how they feel when the dentist puts that buzzer thing against their bicuspids, and if sufficiently pressed, they will describe their sensations on mouthing a rubber dam. I'll tell you what I hate, they will say with great relish. When he takes that little nut pick and begins to scrape. Ugh. Oh, I'll tell you what's worse than that, says the friend, not to be outdone. When he's poking around careless-like and strikes a nerve, wow! And if there are more than 2 people at the experience meeting, everyone will chip in and tell what he or she considers to be the worst phase of the dentist's work. All present enjoying the narration hugely, and none so much as the narrator who has suffered so. This sort of thing has been going on ever since the first mammoth gold tooth was hung out as a bait to folks in search of a good time. By the way, when did, now that's interesting because, you know, in In Great Gatsby, there's Dr. Eckelberg's eyes, and Benchley is referring to the tradition of having a tooth. I guess it was because a large number of Americans were illiterate then, and they probably still are. Might be a good idea for dentists to put tooths out again. By the way, when did the present obnoxious system of dentistry begin? It can't be so very long ago that the electric auger was invented. And where would a dentist be without an electric auger? Yet you never hear of amalgam filling day or any other anniversary of the dental year. There must be a conspiracy of silence on the part of the trade to keep hidden all the names of the men and the women who are responsible for all of this. However many years it may be that dentists have been plying their trade, in all that time, people have never tired of talking about their teeth. This is probably due to the inscrutable workings of nature, who is always supplying new teeth to talk about. As a matter of fact, the actual time and suffering in the chair is only a fraction of the gross expenditure connected with the affair. The preliminary period, about which nobody talks, is much the worse. This dates from the discovery of the wayward tooth and extends to the moment when the dentist places his foot on the automatic hoist, which jacks you up into range. Giving gas for tooth extraction is all very humane in its way, but the time for anesthetics is when the patient first decides that he must go to the dentist. From then on, until the first excavation is started, should be shrouded in oblivion. There is probably no moment more appalling than that in which the tongue, running idly over the teeth in a moment of carefree play, comes across suddenly the ragged edge of a space from which the old familiar filling has disappeared. The world stops, and you look meditatively up to the corner of the ceiling. Then quickly you draw your tongue away and try to laugh the affair off, saying to yourself, "Oh, stuff and nonsense, my good fellow. There is nothing the matter with your teeth. Your nerves are upset about a hard day's work. That is all." Having decided having decided this to your satisfaction, you slyly, and with a poor attempt at being casual, slide the tongue back along the line of adjacent teeth, hoping against hope that it will reach the end without mishap. And this is so true, ladies and gentlemen. This is so true. Haven't you done this? I certainly have. But there it is. There can be no doubt about it this time. The tooth simply has got to be filled by someone, and the only person who can fill it with anything permanent is a dentist. You wonder if you might not be able to patch it up yourself for the time being, a year or so, perhaps with a little spruce gum and a coating of new skin. It is fairly far back and wouldn't have to be a very sightly job. But this has an impracticable sound, even to you. You might want to eat some peanut brittle. You can never tell when someone might offer you some peanut brittle these days. And the new skin, well, serviceable enough in the case of cream soups and custards, could not be expected to stand up under heavy crunching. So you admit that since the thing has got to be filled, it might as well be a dentist who does the filling. This much decided, all that is necessary is to call him up and make an appointment. Let us say that this resolve is made on Tuesday. That afternoon, you start to look up the dentist's number in the telephone book. A great wave of relief sweeps over you when you discover that the number is not there. How can you be expected to make an appointment with a man who has not got a telephone? And how can you have a tooth filled without making an appointment? The whole thing is impossible. And that is all there is to it. God knows. You did your best. On Wednesday, there is a slightly more insistent twinge owing to bad management of a sip of ice water. You decide that you simply must get in touch with that dentist when you get back from lunch. But you know how things are. First one thing and then another comes up. Someone came in from Providence who had to be shown around the office. And by the time you had a minute to yourself, it was 5 o'clock. And anyway, the tooth did not bother you again. You wouldn't be surprised if, by being careful, you could get along with it as it is until the end of the week, when you'll have more time. A person has to think of their business, after all, and what is a little personal discomfort in the shape of an unfilled tooth to the satisfaction of work well done in the office? By Saturday morning, you are fairly reconciled to going ahead, but it is only a half day and probably there are no appointments left with the dentist anyway. Monday really is the time to do this. You can begin the week afresh. After all, Monday, it's really the logical day to start in going to the dentist. Bright and early Monday morning, you make another try at the telephone book and find, to your horror, that sometime between now and last Tuesday, the dentist's name and number have been inserted into the directory. There it is. There's no getting around it. Burgess, Joseph Kendall, DDS, Cortland 2654. There is really nothing left to do but to call them up. Fortunately, the line is busy, which gives you a perfectly good excuse for putting it off until Tuesday. But on Tuesday, luck is against you, and you get a clear connection with the doctor himself. An appointment is arranged for Thursday afternoon at 3:30. Thursday afternoon, and here it is, only Tuesday. Almost anything could happen between now and then. We might declare war on Mexico. We might actually. We might declare war on Mexico, and off you'd have to go, dentist appointment or no dentist appointment. Surely a person could not let a date to have a tooth filled stand in the way of their doing their duty to their country. Or the social revolution might start on Wednesday, and by Thursday, the whole town might be in ashes. You can picture yourself standing Thursday afternoon at 3:30 on the ruins of City Hall, fighting off marauding bands of rebels and saying to yourself with a sigh of relief, only to think that this time I was to have been climbing into the dentist's chair. You never can tell when your luck will turn on a thing like that. But Wednesday goes by and nothing happens. And Thursday morning dawns without even a word from the dentist saying that they've been called suddenly out of town to lecture before the Incisor Club. Apparently, everything is working against you. By this time, your tongue is taken up a permanent resting place in the vacant tooth and is causing you to talk indistinctly and incoherently. Somehow you feel that if the dentist opens your mouth and finds the tip of your tongue in the tooth, you will be deceived and you will go away without doing anything. The only thing left for you to do is to call them up and say you have just killed a person and you are being arrested and you cannot possibly keep your appointment. But any dentist is going to see through that. He'd probably laugh right into the transmitter at you. There's probably no excuse which it would be possible to invent, which a dentist has not already heard 80 or 90 times. Nope, you might as well see the thing through now. Luncheon. is a ghastly right. The whole left side of your jaw has suddenly developed an acute sensitivity, and the disaffection is spread to the front teeth on either side of the original one. You doubt if it'll be possible for the dentist to touch it at all. Perhaps all he intends to do this time is to look at it anyway. You might even suggest that to him. You could very easily come in again soon and have him do the actual work. 3:30 draws near. A horrible time of day, at best. Just when someone's vitality is lowest. Before stepping in out of the sunlight into the building in which the dental parlor is, you take one look about you at the happy people scurrying by in the street. Carefree children that they are. What do they know of life? Probably that man in the silly-looking hat never had trouble with so much as his baby teeth. There they go, pushing and jostling each other, just as if within 10 feet of them there was not a man who stands on the brink of the great misadventure. Ah, well, life is like that. Into the elevator. The last hope is gone. The door clangs, and you look hopelessly about you at the stupid faces of your fellow passengers. How can people be so clownish? Of course, there's always the chance that the elevator will fall and that you'll all be terribly hurt, but that is too much to expect. You dismiss it from your thoughts as too impractical, too visionary. Things don't work out as happily as that in real life. You feel a certain glow of heroic pride when you tell the operator the correct floor number. You might just as easily have told him a floor too high or a floor too low, and that would at least have caused delay. But after all, a man must prove himself a man, and the least you can do is meet fate with an unflinching eye and give the right floor number. Too often has the scene in the dentist's waiting room been described for me to try to do it again here. They're all alike. The antiseptic smell, the ominous hum from the operating rooms, the ancient digests, and the silent, sullen group of waiting patients, each trying to look unconcerned and cordially disliking everybody else in the room. All these have been sung by poets of far greater lyric power than mine. Not that I really think there are greater poets than mine, but that's the customary form of excuse for not writing something you haven't got time or the space to do. As a matter of fact, I think I could probably do it much better than it has ever been done before. I can only say that as you sit looking with unseeing eyes through a large book entitled The War in Pictures, you would gladly change places with the most lowly of God's creatures. It is inconceivable that there should be anyone worse off than you, unless perhaps it is some of the poor wretches who are waiting with you. That one, over in the armchair, nervously tearing to shreds a copy of the Dental Review and Practical Inlay Worker. She may have something frightful to trouble with her. She couldn't possibly look more worried. Perhaps it is very, very, very painful. This thought cheers you up considerably. What cowards humans are at times like this. And then there comes the sound of voices from the next room. All right, doctor, and if it gives me any more pain, I'll call you up. You think that it will bleed much more? Saturday morning, then, at 11. Okay, goodbye, doctor. And a middle-aged woman emerges. All women are middle-aged when emerging from the dentist's office, looking as if she were playing the big emotional scene in John Ferguson. A wisp of hair waves dissolutely across her forehead between her eyes. Her face is pale, except for a slight inflammation at the corners of her mouth, And in her eyes is that faraway look of one who has been face to face with life. But she is through. She should care how she looks. The nurse appears and looks inquiringly at each one in the room. Each one in the room evades the nurse's glance in one last futile attempt to fool someone and get away without seeing the dentist. But she spots you, and she nods pleasantly. God, how pleasantly she nods. There ought to be a law. There ought to be a law against people being as pleasant as that. The doctor will see you now, she says. The English language may hold a more disagreeable combination of words than the doctor will see you now. I'm willing to concede something to the phrase, have you anything to say before the current is turned on? That may be worse for the moment, but it doesn't last as long. For continued, unmitigating depression, I know nothing to equal the doctor will see you now. But I'm not narrow-minded about it. I'm willing to concede other possibilities. Smiling feebly, you trip over the extended feet of the man next to you, and you stagger into the delivery room, where, amidst a ghastly array of death masks, of teeth, blue flames waving eerily from Bunsen burners, and the drowning sound of perpetually running water, which chokes and gurgles at intervals, you sink into the chair and you close your eyes. But now let us consider the spiritual exaltation that comes when you are at last let down and turned loose. It's all over. And what did it amount to? Why, nothing at all. Ha, 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 ha. Nothing at all. You suddenly develop a particular friendship for the dentist, a splendid fellow, really. You ask him questions about his instruments. What's he use this thing for instance? Well, to think a little thing like that making all that trouble. Ha, 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 ha. And the dentist family, how are they? Well, isn't that fine? Gaily, you shake hands with him. You straighten your tie. Forgotten is the fact that you have another appointment with him on Monday. There is no such thing as Monday. You're through for today, and all is right with the world. As you pass out through the waiting room, you leer. You leer at the others unpleasantly. Those poor fishes. Why can't they take their medicine like grown people and not sit there moping as if they were going to be shot? Hi-ho, here's the elevator man. A charming fellow. You wonder if he knows that you've just had your tooth filled. You feel tempted to tell him and slap him on the back. You feel tempted to tell everyone out in that bright, cheery street. And what a wonderful street it is, too. All full of nice black snow and water. After all, life is sweet. And then you go and find the first person who you can accost without being arrested. And you explain to them just what it was that the dentist did to you and how you felt and what you've got to have done next time. Which brings us right back to where we were in the beginning, and perhaps accounts for everyone's liking to divulge their dental secrets to others. It may be a sort of hysterical relief that, for the time being, it is all over with. All right, ladies and gentlemen, all right, thank you for joining us. I am now going to read the long list of supporters of our Substack, the charitable brigade, the liberal snowplowing do-gooders. Ladies and gentlemen, I am here to thank, and it's long now. It's like 50 names. I'm going to start running the list of names like the Patreon people do, and then do the unidentified in the background. But I'm going to read all the names one more time. One more time, ladies and gentlemen. We have to thank Mary Graham, Magic Starheart, Cece Danforth, Kay McDonough, Melinda Weingartner, Wing and Wing 2. I haven't yet figured out who that is, but Wing and Wing 2, thank you. MP Schmid, Linda Marquez, Jane S. Morgan, Dexelrad, another person I haven't figured out who that is, Peggy Weed, Catherine Fisher, Susan McNeil, Sonia Jackson, Christina Stockman, Terry Widener, Bree Dodson, Elizabeth Swartz, Lizzie Grosso, Adele Reichert, Christine Marks, Kate Fry, John T. Wilhelm, where was I? Deborah Lovett, Jean Fry, James Gilbreth, Marlon Gibson, Ann Cousins, Carol Burning, hi Carol, Helen Sixick, Nancy Radzik, MJ Brush, Cindy Baker, Nancy Bass, Rhea Bruns, Jeb Hart, Busy Graham, Nancy Flanagan, Susan McCullough, Kathleen Bartlett, Sharon Allen, Sandy Like the Beach Daniel, Scott Jones, Susan Dalton, Jimmy Malley, Nancy Teagarden Waganek, David Erlanger, Mike Steele, Bob Manning, Don Anderson, Lincoln Payne, Sue Kibbe, Martha Rowley, and out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, waiting for opening day of his beloved Pittsburgh Pirates. My very, very, very tall cousin, Mr. Nat Hunter, his wonderful wife Elise, and their little tiny microscopic dog, Ginger. Thank you all so much. You take good care. Hang in there. Keep fighting the good fight, ladies and gentlemen, and hope that Charbonneau comes home soon. All right. Take good care. See you next week. Bye-bye.